using these little bread tins. You need 3 of them to put this recipe in. And these are perfect to use for gifts. So you make 3 of these, you let them completely cool, you put some like saran wrap out, and you just kind of push a little bit on the bottom and it falls right out. And then you can actually wash these and reuse them. So let's start cooking. The first thing you want to do is preheat your oven to 325 degrees, and then you want to take your butter. You need half of a cup of butter, and you need it to be a little bit melted. I personally don't use microwaves. This came with the house. We've never used it. So what I'll usually do is I'll take the amount of butter that I need, and I'll put it in some kind of little ceramic container like this. And then I will heat up our toaster oven, and I'll either put this on top of the toaster oven if I have a lot of time and patience and it just starts slowly melting from the heat, or if I'm in a little bit of a hurry, I'll actually put this whole thing in the toaster oven for a couple of minutes. Just make sure if you do that, you get it out with a towel, because obviously this will be very hot. You don't want to melt it completely, you just want it to be a little bit softened. If you let like half of it melt on the bottom and the rest isn't, when you mix it together, it's kind of the perfect consistency. So I'm going to go ahead and put half of a cup of butter in here and melt it, get the oven going, and then we'll mix everything else up. Okay, I wasn't paying attention and I accidentally melted my butter way too much. And to this, I'm going to add about a cup of sugar. You can add a little bit less to make it a little bit healthier, especially if your bananas are really brown. These ones happen to be really brown, and the browner they are, the sweeter they are. So if you have really sweet bananas, feel free especially to use a little bit less sugar. And you just want to blend those together. Usually for this part, I actually use a hand mixer because it just makes it a lot easier. Since I accidentally melted the butter so much, this is going to incorporate very, very easily. So once that is all combined, you want to add the vanilla. I am using a vanilla bean paste. The recipe calls for 1 to 2 teaspoons. I usually don't measure vanilla. Forgive me. That looks good. After you get the vanilla incorporated in here, it's time to sift in all of the dry ingredients. I'm gonna keep it really real with you guys and show you how I actually do it. Okay. Yes, in theory, you should always mix all of your dry ingredients together first. That makes sure that you get the salt and the baking soda and everything else completely incorporated in your whole dish. Yes, that's the proper way to do it. And then if you sift the ingredients into the rest of your recipe, yes, that's the best way to do it. I'm just gonna show you what I do, because usually when I'm making this, I'm like, this is so fast and easy, and I'm feeling lazy and I just want some banana bread. So this is how I get things done. Okay, you need 1.5 cups of flour. So this is a 1 cup measuring cup. I'm going to fill it all the way up. And this is how I'm going to keep track of how much I'm using. So I'm going to put a little bit of this in. Now the recipe also calls for salt and baking soda. So I'm going to put a little bit of salt with this flour. And I'm also going to put a little bit of baking soda in here. You're supposed to use 1 teaspoon of the baking soda. I am going to stay true to that part of the recipe and keep this right here, but I'm going to put a little bit in every time I put the flour in. And that's the way I make sure everything is incorporated. Also, I'm not sifting. You absolutely can. You absolutely don't have to. This recipe does tend to get a little bit dry as you're adding all the flour. I mean, we still have half of a cup of flour to put in here, but just remember that when we're putting the bananas in at the end, it's gonna give it a lot of moisture. So even if you have like this crumbly texture, it's fine. It's all gonna work out. My half a cup measuring is dirty from the butter, so I'm gonna use 1/4 of a cup first choice here. Okay, so you see this crumbly, floury texture. This is what it's supposed to look like, even though it seems a little bit off. And now it's time to smash the bananas. Okay, technically this recipe calls for 3 very ripe bananas. These are very, very ripe. They are falling apart. So sometimes it's good to have 4 on hand because, I mean, for instance, this one I probably won't use the whole thing. I'm really weird about my fruit. If it's brown, I'm not eating it. So you just want to take a little bowl and put all these bananas in there. Like I said, about 3. And a little brown spot like that doesn't freak me out that bad. It's just the bigger ones that I don't like. But I mean, you don't have to use them, so. And now you smash. I'm convinced that the easiest way to do this is with a fork. Just kind of smash it up against the sides. Now that our bananas are all smashed, we just add this into the rest of the batter. This honestly seems a little dry. I'm gonna add this last banana. Okay, see how it's starting to come together as like a dough now? Finally, this is the way it's supposed to look. And it already smells amazing. With all breads and baked goods, you don't want to mix them too much. Just make sure everything is incorporated. I'm still kind of going because there's a little bit left on the bottom here. But now we're done. I have greased this pan. And now we are just going to add everything to it. And you guys, that is it. Now you just put this in the oven, like I said, 325 degrees, And if you're making one this size, then you're gonna wanna cook it for about 60 minutes. If you're using the 3 smaller tins, you wanna do it for 30 to 35 minutes and just keep testing it with a toothpick or a fork. Here is the finished product, everyone. The banana bread is perfect. The whole house smells good. I really hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. If you did, please let me know down below what your favorite part was. Let me know if you added anything different. Feel free to add things to this, like little pieces of nuts or chocolate chips. Different variations can make it really interesting. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.